So you've had the scans done and you've been told you have a bulging disc. But is this actually why your back still hurts? The true answer will surprise you. Two people can have exactly the same scan done. Disc bulges, arthritis, degeneration, muscle strain, spondylosis, yet they experience completely different pain. And there may be hundreds of different diagnoses on a scan, but in practice, it comes down to the same three patterns over and over again. So today, let's look at what actually causes back pain and why labels rarely lead to the solution you're looking for. The reality is that advanced scans, tests, and diagnosis sound helpful, but for most people, they create more confusion than clarity. And in fact, research has found that the more tests you end up getting, first of all, it gets more expensive, it becomes more complex, and then it becomes more time consuming, but it doesn't lead to better outcomes. When someone sees me and they've been told from a scan that they've got arthritis, the next question they come to me to ask is, okay, so what do I actually do about it? Most diagnoses don't explain why pain comes and goes either. They don't explain flare-ups, and they don't explain why two people with exactly the same scan feel completely different. So one person with a bulging disc is out there running marathons. The next is debilitated and can't even get out of bed. And that's where we have to change the focus, less on labels, more on patterns. So let's dive into the most common cause, and that is the loss of joint motion. Your spine isn't one solid structure. It's lots of small joints that need to glide within very specific margins of movements. And what I mean by that is that we need that perfect balance between flexibility and stability. And we can't have too much, and we can't have too little. There's 24 movable bones in the spine called vertebra, and between each bone there's 3 joints. You've probably heard of these, facet joints and a disc. Between them there's 6 degrees of freedom across 3 axes of movement. Now this is a phenomenally complex structure that's designed to move across all those different planes, but with absolute pinpoint accuracy and control. To give you an idea of how controlled they are, in your hand, the little receptors that tell your brain exactly where your fingers are, there's 13 of these for every gram of muscle. In your neck, it's in the hundreds. That's how accurate your brain wants to sense what's going on throughout your spine. Now, when those joints stop moving properly from prolonged sitting, guarding, inflexibility or old injuries, the brain loses that clear and accurate movement information from the spine. And when the brain doesn't trust that movement, it will go into a protection state. So protection is subtle. It's just going to start simply with feeling stiff, but then it might move to spasm, then to tightness in muscles and poor coordination, and eventually we get to that point we have an injury or some pain. And this is why people often say, well, I start off pretty bad in the mornings, but as I get moving, I feel much better. And that's not coincidence. That is actually the motion restoring input. It's waking up the joints and helping the brain better control those joints. The second big driver we see is how long people stay in bad positions. And people will often refer to this as poor posture. And while staying in a really terrible posture may lead to the problem quicker, any position that you're in for too long will eventually become a problem eventually. Now, it's not the posture for 5 minutes that hurts you, no matter how bad it is. It's that single posture or position that doesn't change for 5 hours. Picture this. You have the fanciest car, the fanciest office chair, or the most expensive ergonomic setup. Now, try sitting in that for 2 hours straight and don't move. You'll notice you begin to squirm, and eventually you'll become uncomfortable no matter how good the setup is. We are simply built to move. We're not designed to be stuck in one single position and not move. Now, imagine if you did that every day, which chances are you probably do. You do the same movement or the same posture day in, day out. Whether you're in an office, whether you're regularly commuting, whether you're in a trade, we're creatures of habit, and your spine adapts to whatever we do the most of. Now, let's use sitting as an example. If we're slouching, we're leaning forward, our body is going to mold into that. And over time, joints compress, discs take more load than they're designed, and movement options disappear. And in fact, your brain will forget how to control your spine in these very specific positions if you don't use them regularly. And when they've looked at brain scans, you can literally see the parts of the brain that control these movements shrink. Your brain forgets how to use the body in the way that you don't move regularly. Then one day you go and bend down into that position that you haven't been in a while, and your back says, no. It's because your brain's forgotten how to control your spine, and your spine then can't take the load. Now, this doesn't mean that all sitting is evil. It actually means that being stuck in one position and stillness without counter movement is going to stack on stress. The third cause is something most people have never had explained to them. When joints aren't moving well and posture loads the spine constantly, the nervous system, it stays on high alert. Now, if you can stand up, it's unlikely that your muscles are weak, and it's more likely that they're overworked or they're poorly controlled. They stay on to protect the area, which creates fatigue, tightness, and then reduced accurate control of those joints. This is why you'll often hear people say, oh, my muscles just won't relax. I can go get a massage, I can stretch it out, but within an hour, they're all tight again. What your body's actually doing there is what it's supposed to. The system doesn't feel safe yet, and so it's staying in that protection mode to stop you from hurting yourself. Now, here's the important part. These three causes rarely exist alone. They play off each other because loss of motion is going to change our posture and our posture tolerance. That poor posture changes the way our nervous system functions. And when the brain can't sense that spinal movement, it creates more guarding. So we get even more tightness and less movement, and we reduce our motion even further. And that loop is why single solutions are usually going to fail. This is also why stretching or medications or massages alone don't usually result in a long-term fix for most backs, because no amount of anti-inflammatory is going to get your joints moving again. You can't stretch a joint that isn't moving. You simply just pull harder on a restricted system. Now, don't get me wrong, stretching's great. We prescribe it and it can feel good short term. But if you don't restore that joint motion, you get stuck in this cycle and it's bound to repeat itself. So when someone asks, what is the root cause of back pain? The real answer is really just one thing, and it's usually a pattern built over time for that individual. And if you want to understand which of these patterns applies to you and what order things actually need to happen in, that's exactly what we break down in our back pain resources. Start with the back pain page or the back pain breakthrough webinar. That's where we lay the full map out clearly.